Welcome to this month's Fit for Colorado Talk to the Doc chat. Hello, I'm CBS4 anchor and health reporter Kathy Walsh. For the next half hour, we'll be chatting about fitness and health issues here on CBS4Denver.com. It's something we're planning to do on the first Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. Throughout this chat, we encourage you to ask questions by simply typing them in the chat window at right, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. In today's chat, we're going to discuss childhood obesity, and in particular, are you vacationing your kids to obesity? Roughly 32% of children in the U.S. are overweight, 16% obese, and 11% extremely obese. The good news is a study shows the number may be leveling off, but most would agree it's still way too high, and summer vacation can be a special challenge. Joining me today is Dr. Reggie Washington, a children's heart specialist and chief medical officer for Rocky Mountain Hospital for Children. Also, Dr. Jim Hill, co-founder of America on the Move and director of the Center for Human Nutrition, UC Denver. All right, Dr. Hill, those statistics are pretty scary. How bad is the problem?
Well, this is really bad. I mean, this is a crisis, and I think Americans haven't quite recognized what a crisis it is. When our kids become obese, we're looking forward to a lot of bad things happening. Health issues, quality of life issues, academic issues. So I think it's bad, and I think it's something we all should be concerned about.
Dr. Washington, what have you seen in your years of practice that concern you?
Well, Jim's certainly correct. The side effects, if you will, the bad things that can happen to the obese child we're seeing in droves. So-called diabetes, type 2 diabetes, elevations in cholesterol, elevations in blood pressure, all these things are on the rise. And the problem is they don't go away. Once you have these, unless you get your lifestyle under control, lose that weight, become more physically active, you carry those things into adulthood.
All right, so what's to blame?
Oh, what's to blame is so many things, and that's the problem. We want one thing. If we could just fix one thing. And so on some level, what you have to look at is our kids aren't eating appropriately, they're not getting enough activity. Why is that? Well, because there are 300 channels on TV, and there are video games, and there's always something to watch. Food's always available. It's served in large portions. So lots of little things have conspired to make it so that it's easy for kids to eat all the time, and it's easy for them to be sedentary.
And I know that you've told me before, you talk to kids who haven't had a piece of fruit in days.
Absolutely. I'd like to dovetail on what Jim said. Our children are now living in what I call an obesogenic environment. It's a toxic environment. You go to school, physical education is not available, and if it is available, it's not often good quality physical education. When I visited the Denver Public Schools, there are schools where out of 45 minutes of physical education time, they're physically active maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So it's not 45 minutes of physical activity, it's 5 to 10 minutes of physical activity. You look at the vending machines that are available. You look at the competitive foods. Competitive foods are things that competitors to the lunch meals bring in. Schools do this because they make money. Schools do this because the kids demand it. And quite honestly, schools do this so the kids won't leave the campus, because when kids leave campus, often bad things happen. Right. So there are multiple reasons why competitive foods are in the schools, but they're there nonetheless. You go home, as Jim mentioned, you have a lot of media choices, not only television, but computers, texting your friends, talking on the cell phone, anything to keep you from being physically active. Right. And then you've got portion sizes. We eat way too much in this country, and kids, as Jim was talking about before the program started, kids don't know it any other way because that's how they grew up. Yeah. So all of these things are coming together in what I call an obesogenic environment, and one of the reasons why we haven't made strides in solving this problem is because we as Americans only attack one thing at a time.
We want to go after something big.
Exactly.
And as I said before here, it's a lot of little things.
Right.
I'd rather change 100 little things than take any one big thing and totally correct it.
The best example I can give you of how I feel about that is what happened in New York City with trans fats. There's a fast food establishment that sold fried chicken. I won't mention the brand name. However, they took trans fats out of the fried chicken, and everyone was jubilant. They said, now we've solved the obesity problem. Now, I will submit to your audience, how many people go to this fast food restaurant to eat fresh fruit and vegetables? They go there to eat fried chicken.
Right.
And so they will have 4 or 5 pieces of fried chicken, mashed potatoes and gravy, and a milkshake. but they feel good about themselves because there's no trans fat in that fried chicken. There's a terrible message there we're missing.
Yeah. Once again, that they're going to solve your problem, when in fact you need to solve your problem. Let's talk about a couple of things. I read an article recently that listed the 6 worst, according to fitness experts, the 6 worst bad health habits that children have. Let's take a look at the first one and talk about it. I think we had a little bit of a discussion on it already. Is that one going to come up? I can tell you what it is. You are, let's see it. It's going to come up right in a minute. Anyway, let's talk about it. It is you are where you eat. Let's talk a little bit. You said screen time, couch potatoes. Are we raising a generation of kids who just sit around?
Well, some people have said we're fattening our kids in front of the television. And so if you think about it, sitting in front of the television, now television's not a terrible thing. That's the problem.
Yeah.
All of these aren't bad things, but if you sit in front of the television, you're not being active, and we tend to do this mindless eating in front of the TV.
That's right.
We're not sitting there saying, God, I'm just starving. What we're saying is, you know, I'm kind of bored, I'm watching TV, and I want to multitask, and I need something to eat, and guess what? It isn't the healthy stuff you tend to eat in front of the television.
Yeah, same thing with a computer, I would think.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
Yes, it is. Academy of Pediatrics recommends no more than 2 hours of television a day. We feel, I was just part of another committee that's going to make some recommendations, and we're going to cut that down to 1 hour of television a day. Now, again, it's not that television is bad, it's what you're not doing while you're watching television, and you can't be physically active and watch television at the same time. There are a couple studies, however, that connected the TV to a cycle, and you had to be pedaling the cycle actively in order to watch TV. Guess what? The amount of television viewing went way, way down.
They aren't willing to work as hard if they have to do it.
That's
What do you think about these new active video games? You think that's a plus?
Well, I think it's better than being sedentary. Now, if you talk to people who have used these video games for tennis and things like that, they actually are exhausted at the end of this. Now, someone said to me, are you going to endorse them? Well, no, I'm not going to endorse them, but if the choice is sitting sedentary on the couch doing nothing, or playing a Wii, of course I think the Wii is better.
It's a better choice than playing a sedentary game.
I've tried it. You can break a sweat on one of those.
Yes,
If you are going to use these are the better ones to use.
That's correct.
Well, that's the second one, too much screen time. We talk about that. That's absolutely, we've already covered that. The third one they talk about is eye candy. In other words, kids test food with their eyes. There you go, eye candy. Basically, they look at something, they go, looks good, I want it. Maybe I don't like that other thing because it looks green and it's, how do we get around that? How do we say to them, you know what, it's not all about the thing that pops in your mouth and the thing that's yellow or orange. It's, you know, about the really good stuff too.
Well, it depends on the choices we give our kids. If you give a child a choice of carrot sticks or celery sticks, those are your choices for a snack. They're going to choose one or the other or neither one. If you give them a choice of carrot sticks and this cheesy popcorn mix that I won't mention the name of, or potato chips that are coated in cheese and sour cream and other flavorings, and you give them a choice of either one, they're of course going to choose the one they want to choose. And parents will tell me that all the time. I can't get my son or daughter to eat fruits and vegetables, and I say, well, how do you present them? Well, I have them in the house, and I say, do you have these other things? Well, yeah, and our kids can make a choice. I say, you don't let them make a choice in any other arena. For example, you don't tell them, here's a bowl of cocaine, and here's some celery. My kids can make this choice. I mean, we have this different attitude towards food.
Yeah.
Reggie, don't you think in schools people have said, oh, if you put healthy stuff in, kids won't eat it? But in the examples where they've done it and make the healthy food taste good, the kids have actually...
That's actually a good
numbers
point.
Are way up.
One of the things that schools have experimented with and have been very successful is let the kids participate in not only the preparation of the food and the recipes, but also in the choices of food. And so they learn about the value of vegetables and different fruits and so on. And so they develop this taste because they participated in it. It's not something that was just shoved in their face. The problem with that is when these kids often go home and they say to their mom or dad, I had a new vegetable offered me today. I'd like you to go buy it. Mom can either, one, not find it, two, if she finds it, she doesn't know how to prepare it, and three, if she does find it in a grocery store, if they live in the inner city, it's exorbitantly expensive.
Can you afford it?
So again, this is one of those prehab things, one of those prehabilitation maneuvers we could use. We could make these things more accessible, cheaper, and easier. I want to go back to eye candy for a minute. One of the things that makes fast food so attractive, there's several. One is it's cheap. Two, it tastes good. They go out of their way to put sugar and salt in these foods because that tastes good.
It's also cheap, right?
It's very cheap, but it's convenient. That's the third thing. I was given a presentation once, and I mentioned to the families it's very difficult to go, if you're a two-parent family and everybody's working, or you're a single-parent family and you've come home from work. The last thing you want to do is prepare a good meal. Mrs. Cleaver isn't there fixing these foods. For those of your audience who don't know Mrs. Cleaver, she was Leave It to Beaver years ago.
I remember.
The point,
Me too.
the point is, fast foods is sometimes a necessity in some families. What we encourage our patients who are in that situation is choose good fast foods. All fast foods are not bad. You have to choose the appropriate item in the appropriate portion. You don't have to get the triple cheeseburger with extra sauce if you go there. So there are things we can do within the realm, and people have actually studied this in various socioeconomic groups. You know, some of us sitting around a table might say, thou shalt not have this, that, and the other thing, but we're not really living the life that these people live. And so we have to be a little sensitive to that, but you can still make healthy choices.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about a couple of things, then I want to get to your cheeseburger, because I really want to show people that graphic that we have that explains a little bit about what's going on with fast food.
It'll help understand.
Junk in the cupboard, that's number 4, that's a biggie. And also prepackaged meals, that's some of the things we talked about with all the sodium and all the things that they have. One of the things that we also talk about with adults is not so model behavior. You know, we're also sometimes in a hurry. It's convenient. We go through, we're hungry, we get the burger. But let's take a look at what's happened to burgers if we can. We're going to bring up this particular graphic. Explain that, Dr. Hill.
So at the bottom, you can see what a cheeseburger looked like when I was a child back in the 1960s. It was about 333 calories. That's just your average cheeseburger. If you look today, it's almost 600 calories. Now, this didn't happen overnight. Wow. This happened gradually. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. So my kids would look at that little one and say, oh, come on, that's not a cheeseburger.
It's a snack.
In 1960, they would have looked at the big one and said, oh my God, nobody can eat that.
Right.
So it really points out how gradually we've changed these portion sizes and you come to accept it. So for today's kids, 600-calorie cheeseburger is a natural thing.
And didn't you have spaghetti here as well? We were going to look at a plate of pasta and see what that difference is.
If you look at the plate of the pasta, portion sizes are a real problem. So look, pasta the Italian way, pasta the American way. We supersize it. So the Italians eat a lot of pasta, but they eat it in more reasonable portion sizes. What we know, and a lot of research suggests, quite simply, the more on the plate, the more we eat. So our guide is how much is in the plate, or how much is in the package, or how much is in the cup.
The other thing that's interesting about that, one of the fast food establishments did away with their supersized as an experiment. You know what happened? People started ordering 2 or 3 servings.
Wow.
So again,
indoctrinated, huh?
That's right. So again, when we go after the fast food establishments and we say they made us do this, that's not entirely true, because if they cut the portion size in half, in this experiment, people just ordered 2 portions.
It's just like drive-through. Well, when they offered it, it was something we wanted anyway. So we can't blame them.
That's right.
Because they're giving us kind of what we want. On the portion size thing, the only way I can see to reverse this, I don't think you could go from 600 to 300 overnight. I think we have to go down gradually, and that's going to be tough. One establishment does it, the other doesn't. Well, it's an advantage.
Where are you going to go where you think you get more for your money and the
more value?
So this is going to be a tough one unless, kind of as a society, we can agree to gradually take them down. So if the cheeseburger went from 600 to 550 calories, nobody would notice, and take it down gradually over time.
That's right.
But you make a good point. In Europe, for anybody who's been to Europe, when you buy almost anything, a soda, a tub of yogurt, almost everything is in a smaller serving package. And it is an American thing, so-called Western diet, where this is.
So the question is, are we going to change Europe, or are they going to persist?
Well, actually, it's interesting. Europe is trying to mimic us. Europe is gradually getting larger portion sizes, and as you might guess, the obesity epidemic is tracking.
So
and more fast food establishments.
The American environment is successful at producing obesity all around the world.
Absolutely.
Aren't we good? Hey, a couple of questions.